The Cone of Glass and Fire. Chapter 12. Paper, letter and pencils. On Monday, Harry got up in a routine that he was already beginning to find he knew. It was his first official day at the works. He felt all right until after a few hours. Then he really started to miss Jamie helping him, his calm presence guiding towards the right thing to do, and his general warm, laughing-eyed demeanour. Now he had to make his own decisions about what to do next, and to remember to drink enough without being reminded to. He found his head starting to ache. He went to Bill. "Is there anything I can do for you? Will you be all right for a while?" "Aye, lad, you've been fussing round me like a mother hen." His experienced keen eyes had not missed Harry's discomfort, even though he took the merest look at him. "You've got to look after yourself, though. Go outside and have a drink. Not too much at once, you know, like Jamie showed you." He was working all the time he talked, not looking at Harry, but at his work. "And when you've finished, bring some back for Rob." Harry nodded and followed his gaffer's instructions. When outside, he found the sun was warm, and after a few minutes he had to be in the shade to try and get rid of the rising headache. But he felt secure. He knew what to do. A voice was calling his name after a short while, a voice he kind of knew, but couldn't quite place. It wasn't Jamie's. The sun stopped him from looking all the way across the courtyard, and it wasn't until the owner of the young, enthusiastic sound was nearly upon him that his aching brain managed to put together all its information. He only just did this in time, but somehow he succeeded in greeting the young man properly, even, just like his mum said to do. "Oh, Thomas! How are you?" He tried not to sound disappointed. The other young man he had met on his first visit to Stirling's called out cheerily. He was a nice chap, but he just wasn't Jamie. Still, "Oh, me? Marvellous, I'm fine." He was rushing, as many people seemed to do around Stirling's. "I hope you're all right. Looks like you didn't fall over, like me. Well done." "Actually, I did one day, but it was out here." "Oh, that was lucky. Anyway, I've got something for you, and a message. Look, I've brought some paper, you know, for your drawing." Harry had completely forgotten, what with Jamie and his watch week and learning what to do, just everything. "Oh!" He was nonplussed and touched. "Oh, well, thank you." He felt guilty. "It's not great, a bit rubbish in fact, but the best I can get." Harry looked at the large, blotter-sized sheets, thick, with some ink on surely, but nothing like as bad as the stuff he had often had at school. "No, it's fantastic," he said. "Thank you so much." "Oh, good. I'm so glad you like it. My brother said you would." "Really?" Harry racked his brain for who exactly Thomas's brother could be. Who would know such a thing about him? "Yes, he sent a message to you and to your mother, but he said I should give it to you, as you were a man now, working." And with that the spindly clerk handed him a single white sheet, folded over and sealed with wax in the old way, using no envelope, with his name on the back of the sheet. Thomas gave a slightly nervous smile as Harry took it. He looked at it. He certainly recognised the handwriting, but again he couldn't place it, as if it were from another lifetime. But what? His mind was completely absent at that moment, apart from everything that had happened in the cone with Jamie and Bill. Thomas said quickly, "Look, I've got to go now, but I'm sure sometime we can talk about words, and I'll get to see your drawings." Yes," said Harry, nodding, but not quite sure when that would be. The tall young man turned on his heel and beat a quick retreat across the sunny courtyard, and he heard him going up the stairs round the corner to the offices before the door banged shut at the top. Harry held the sealed sheet for a minute, knowing that he absolutely did know the handwriting. He was sure he was being stupid, but where was it from? Someone who knew him well enough to say he would like the paper for drawing. Where had he had another life? Somewhere he seemed to have forgotten. Drawing, writing, drawing, writing, handwriting. And then it came flooding back. Oh yes, of course, another Craven. Now it all made sense as well, why Thomas spoke so well as he did, very, very well indeed, and his interest in words. That all made sense too now. Mr. Craven. Mr. Craven. Harry felt a twinge of regret. The note was probably asking why he had not been back to see him like he said he would. Oh, he'd got immersed in his work here with Jamie and the cone and all. He felt a little guilt sink down in his stomach, and a sigh at the fact that what he'd said he'd do was now a duty. He put the drawing paper Thomas had given him together like a great roll around the edge with a bulldog clip from Clary's store and put it in there. He would ask Clary later, when he was usually around, if it was all right with him to put it there. He would say yes. Harry was almost sure. And with that thought, he placed the letter without opening it in his trouser pocket and went to the barrel to get the small beer for the rest of the crew as he was meant to be doing. He hurried on with his task and endeavoured to put the letter out of his mind for now. They were busy. He had a job to do. Had to keep the rhythm going like a dance all 4 members of the chair were involved in. He couldn't think about it here. Not here. He wouldn't think about it here, he repeated often. It was difficult. The letter, how it looked, the sheet, with his name in the familiar handwriting of his old school teacher, Mr. Craven, had kept coming into his mind. He repeatedly made sure it was in his pocket, even though he didn't want to open it, feeling sure what the contents would be. Still, it was only his first real week. He could go by one day after work as he'd said he would, and so resolved, it bothered him less now he had made the decision. He saw Clary in his office later. "Oh, hello, lad. I was coming to see you in a bit. Still with us then, I say? What can I do you for?" he said in a customary abbreviation of the phrase. People round here are often shortening things when you must know already what they meant. A friend in the offices sent down this paper for me, for drawing," he told him, pointedly, self-consciously. Clary might think he was a kid or a softy with his paper. Oh, what did you draw? Technical? No. Birds and plants and... He was going to continue, but Clary came straight in, his normal pattern of speech he'd found. Oh, nature. I used to like bird watching when I were a lad, but now I have to make a lot of technical drawings of the design stuff, patterns and the like, for the glass, you know. Oh, Harry merely said, interested. Well, there's pencils in the drawer. Long as you don't steal 'em all, I won't mind, he joked, wagging an index, slightly cooked, sausage-like finger at Harry in mock disapprobation. But I'll let you have all the short ones if you like. I find 'em too hard to use, what with my big hands, you know. And he demonstrated, a short pencil getting lost in his huge gripe. Harry could see immediately that they would be uncomfortable and difficult to use for the big man, sticking into his palm even. He nodded and replied, Clary, thank you. Oh, that'd be great. He beamed and thought about how he would now spend his lunch times. He felt a little uncomfortable with the other apprentices. He was older than many, even though he'd only just started, and they wanted to play marbles and such games, whereas he felt too old for all that stuff, and really wanted to stand with the men, yet not feeling quite old enough to do so all the time. This would be the perfect solution. And practice makes perfect, Mr. Craven had said, especially about drawing. It brought his mind back. Mr. Craven. The letter. Oh well. He would indeed go and see him. In fact, he would enjoy it. He'd actually missed the teacher, who was patient and kind, always trying to get the best out of everybody, always seeing something good in them all. Yes, he had missed him. Chapter 13. Rhythm and Invites. When he finished work that day, he was amazed to find that he had not tripped over, not dropped any glass or lost consciousness at any point. Indeed, he had found that he had done so much during the afternoon that he had become really involved, and the time had gone swiftly. He thought, perhaps it's better when busier. There really is a rhythm, a swing, a routine, and I'm finding it. Something that carries us all along together, like horses going swiftly in teams. He felt really part of it. Really part of his own team, proud to be part of Bill's chair. The other young apprentices were a little jealous, he'd already found. Thank goodness he'd been able to have a watching week, and that Jamie had been so kind. He couldn't imagine just how difficult his tasks would have been without. Once out of the gates, he decided there was no putting it off any longer. It would be embarrassing if he bumped into Thomas, or even more if he bumped into Mr. Craven himself, which in a small town like Stourbridge was easily possible. I definitely should have been to see him by now. I hope he won't be too upset or disappointed with me. However, on breaking the seal and opening up the single sheet, Harry felt surprise, confusion, and great emotion. on the inside, in this beautiful, evenly sloping hand that he actually knew so well from the blackboard and in his books, his former teacher had written, "Dear Harry, I realise you must be extremely tired at the moment with the change and how hard you must be working, so I have not expected you to come and see me yet. However, there is a matter I would like to talk over with you and your mother regarding the furthering of your education. I always found you a most intelligent and imaginative boy, as you know. Now you are becoming a man, I'm sure you will continue to be so throughout your life. As you must be aware, better opportunities are available for those with higher qualifications, and I feel sure you have the potential to enter one of the professions one day. I would like to come and see you and your mother at a time convenient to discuss the ways in which I may be able to help you in the future. Yours sincerely, James Craven." Harry had come first in the school's examination at the end of the year and had won a prize of a book of birds. Mr. Craven knew that would be exactly what he wanted, Harry thought. What this perceptive and caring man had in mind, Harry had no idea, as at this time and for many years he and his family would have no money to spare. By now he was at the pump, but he dare not wash down, as he would probably ruin the letter, and he needed to be able to show it to Mum when she came home. Perhaps he could come back and cue with the miners. However, on reaching home he found his excitement had given way to flagging tiredness. He called to Jane, who would certainly berate him if he stepped through the door as he was. On showing her the letter, her pride and perplexity were as great as his, but she took it inside to the mantel and brought water out to wash him, though it had been meant for laundry to rinse. He called her an angel, perhaps thinking of Jamie's response for the buns at the weekend. She told him not to be so ridiculous, but glowed nonetheless, and helped him with his boots, he was so tired. At that point he was aided by a swift summer torrent. The occasional peal of thunder masked his laughter as the soot gave way from his hair, running in streaks down his face. When he finally came inside he had begun shivering, and the angel wrapped a blanket around him and sat him close by the range with the inevitable brew. "Get warm now, and drink it all, to stop summer colds," she said. The girls and many others would have stayed at school on seeing the rain begin. "They won't want their long hair in this," Jane said, "especially Charlie. Her hair's like mine, goes so curly, too curly, a bit frizzy when it's been wet." And she was right, as she was about most things. "Now go upstairs and change, then come back down and we'll have some nice hot tea and tea cakes." Tea cakes! What a treat! Harry had forgotten it was his first proper day in his amazement about his letter. Jane was less amazed. "Mr. Craven only sees what we all can," she said cryptically. He had some toasted tea cakes, one of his favourite things, and then dozed in the chair after his long day. Eventually, Mum, Abby and Charlie Bobble arrived. "All right, now we can get on with it," Jane began, but with great affection. She produced a cake from her provisions pantry door, a cupboard really, but grandly called the pantry by all. More tea, with cheese and even ham from the farm in sandwiches all around the table, and the meal, though tasty, could not go fast enough, especially for Charlie, who was the biggest fan of cake Stourbridge had probably ever seen, Mum teased her. Charlie liked that accolade, though, and pronounced it later on every possible occasion. "Well done, Harry," even Abby said, flashing her now beautiful smile at him on cutting the cake as the others clapped. Then he was given the first very large piece. Somehow Abby had been different since Poppy had gone to the farm. "Perhaps she's learnt her lesson," Mum said quietly to Jane, who arched her eyebrows in a "that'll be the day" gesture. After tea, the letter was shown to Mum, who had previously seen it on the mantel, but resisted in a way only she could. She still left it to Harry, it being addressed to him, and asked him what he thought about it after he had read it to her out loud, as she had already done nearly 11 days today, and her eyes were tired. "I really don't know what he means by it," she told him. He had been puzzling on that all the time since he had read it through. "Well, I think he means one or both of two things. First, it could be a scholarship. But if that's it, why didn't he say about it, or the possibility of it, when you were at school?" Or, she took a drink of tea to punctuate her speech, "second, it could be more lessons. But they'll have to cost something, and right now we can't pay. I don't know what to say about that. It's not that we don't want to, but we can't. I know Mr. Craven wanted you to stay on at school, go for blue coats or grammar, but we needed your wage, and I know that. I know it as much as you do, Mum." Jane was sadly silent throughout this conversation. This was something her sister had the public responsibility for. It looked like her family, her decision. She moved quietly, tending the fire. Yet it was Harry who made the decision about what to do in the immediate situation. He says he wants to come and see us, to talk about how he might be able to help me. Mentions a profession, something I've never thought of in my entire life. No matter whether we can afford it right now or not, I would like to hear what he has to say. Just to hear what it is. Not that I'm not happy with the cone. I do like it. I wish it wasn't so dirty and so hot, but I do love the idea of making glass. Yet there are all sorts of possibilities without more school learning, like a technical kind of drawing. I heard about that, for example, today, and how am I to learn that kind of thing?" Mum looked at his eyes. "But you don't even like lining up glasses, Harry, and to talk of technical drawing." "Well, we're not all as talented as you are at it, Mum, but I could learn if I wanted to." "Aye," Jane finally came in. "The only thing that's wrong with your lining, Harry, is that you've never wanted to do that. Whereas if you wanted to, you could be as good as Sal, or do anything else you wanted." "Yes, that's true," Mum said. "But what's the point in that? You'll get an awful lot more money blowing glass than lining." not talking about lining. I'm talking about drawing that's technical for writing pattern books and other stuff. What other stuff? I don't know right now, but to do with glass, he said, vexed at her not understanding him. Jane took his hand under the table and nodded, "It's all right," in reassurance. Mum sat thinking. "Well, I can see you're a young man with ambition, and that's never done any harm to anyone. Sterling's likes ambition. You might get to do something more. For example, Mr. Smith started in the cone like you." Harry was surprised, curious, now also seeing why he had given Mum a few shillings when he had heard Bill liked him. She continued, "So I'll invite Mr. Craven round for a posh tea, crumpets and little sandwiches and cakes." Jane was nodding in agreement. "Everybody in their Sunday best," Jane said pointedly, looking at each. Then, thinking, her sister said, "We should make it this Saturday, and then the girls and I can help you, Jane, if he has no other engagement." Harry was very proud of the way she described it. No other engagement. Very nice. My mum's clever. Used to work in the offices and talented. She could have been an artist. She lines glasses so well, he thought. And men describe her as very handsome too. In fact, Jane is very nice looking, but she doesn't make the best of herself. And all the girls, really, especially Abby, are handsome, though I don't like to admit it, as she's so selfish and a big head. He sat there, his mind still working. Yes, Jane can organise a lovely tea. She worked for an earl, cooking. She can easily do a sandwiches and cake kind of tea, with the place looking like a new pin, and I would actually be very proud of them all in front of Mr. Craven. "That's a very nice idea, Mum. Jane," he settled it.